March Cass Human Service Zone Board meeting to order, and I will ask Blair to do roll call.
Mr. Capitan,
Here.
Mr. Steen,
Here.
Ms. Fry, Mr. Hagan,
Here.
Ms. Haugen,
Here.
Mr. Davison, Mr. Madler,
Here.
Ms. Saar,
Here.
Ms. Bollinger.
Here. Thanks, everyone. First order on the agenda is approval of our February meeting minutes. And please let me know if there's any changes, additions, or additions, or corrections. There we go. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Well, next, as we did in February, we had our family services. Carissa did kind of a spotlight on family services, and it was a good discussion and really roundtable about that department and services, things like that. So I thought this month, we're gonna have Shayna Huvenen, who is our economic assistance program manager, to do a spotlight on economic assistance. And I see one of our other supervisors, Jill Lane, from that department is in the house. So welcome, Jill. I know you're pleased that I pointed that out. She's a long-term economic assistance team member, as well as Shayna. Probably Jill trumps Shayna in the years of service. Okay. Here, but I'm going to turn it over to Shayna to have a little discussion. And I know she's open to questions, interactions, and all of that, but just highlight a little bit about economic assistance. It's a very diverse department, the programs are, the eligibility, we're policy driven. And now we have met in February, 1 year of redesign, and I put that in the packet a little bit about the last year that came out to our team from our state partners about redesign. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Shayna.
Thanks, Gail. Yes, so kind of as Gail pointed out, we administer economic assistance programs. It is very policy driven, so a lot of the decisions we make about whether or not somebody is eligible is based, for the most part, within policy that is provided to us by both the federal government and state government. We administer 5 programs. Medicaid, which includes like Medicaid expansion and Medicaid for aged and disabled individuals, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP, or it used to be known as food stamps, child care assistance, heating assistance, and TANF, which is our cash assistance program. So a lot of that is done with sizable policy influence, and then a lot of it has to do with certain income levels and brackets and things like that. When we refer to redesign having been done a year ago, kind of what that looked like before was that all of our eligibility workers managed caseloads, and their caseloads were specific to them. And they had those clients from the moment they had an application to however long the duration of that case lasted, and would add and remove programs based on circumstances. In February, in order to sort of level the workload throughout the state, we went into this process management driven process where rather than an eligibility worker owning a case or having that primary relationship with the client, anybody throughout the state can work on a case. And how we do that is a lot of it is automatically assigned through our eligibility system, which is called Spaces. And then our workers are broken up into 4 different swim lanes is what we call them. And so we have a swim lane strictly devoted to healthcare. And the workers in that lane, you have one set of workers that are specific to application processing. And that's all they do. They take an incoming app, analyze it, determine eligibility, and then once it's done, it goes back into sort of a collective, and then the other side of that lane is maintenance workers. And those workers are responsible for exacting changes on the case that a client might report, completing a review, anything that is, the upkeep of the case or the ongoing nature of the case. The second lane is food stamps and healthcare. And again, that lane is broken into those app processors and maintenance workers. Our lane 3 is childcare assistance, heating assistance, SNAP, and healthcare. And our lane 4 is all of those programs with TANF added. And again, they all have those sort of dual, like the application processors, maintenance workers. When we initially started redesign, it was localized to regions, and we discovered that still was not an equitable distribution of work, that we still ended up having some regions that, were able to keep up more so than others, depending on, volume of work. And so now it's gone statewide. So our work is completely distributed equally. We are now entering a phase where we're going to probably collapse one of those lanes. And so rather than having 4, we'll have 3. We'll move childcare over to TANF strictly, and then move SNAP, healthcare, Medicaid, and childcare SNAP, Medicaid, healthcare, all into its own lane. Hoping that will offer us more workers to be able to deal with programs such as heating assistance that comes with a significant volume when the program starts each October, because it's a seasonal program. And so we're hoping that by eliminating some of that division, we can afford to have more workers deal with that. The other structure piece we have is that each of these lanes are managed by a people supervisor. So that can be anybody within or any supervisor within the region part, and they supervise the lane or the program. And then we have people supervision, which is on-site supervision from like a personnel perspective within each zone.
I'll just add, it gets a little confusing, if you don't mind.
Nope,
Gina.
please.
And I think we'll get to that handbook, but in the back of the handbook, there was a regional map on one of the appendixes, and we started out in Region 4. So those counties from Cass all the way over to Emmons County, we all work together as that region, delivering eligibility services to any citizens in that, that would apply, and doing those eligibility services. So somebody from Cass might be serviced by a worker from Emmons County or Richland County or Kidder County. As we know, we're the largest county in the state and probably have the largest population receiving or applying for benefits, I'll say it that way. As redesign happened, of course, I think Cass, even before my time here, had a backlog. Kind of was always running behind in the timeliness, and we want, and I support those that are eligible should be receiving their benefits in a timely, efficient manner. Even before redesign, I think Cass County we were having a difficult time keeping up with that. For whatever reasons, probably a multitude of reasons, and then go to redesign, and it impacted really the southeast corner drastically. Even though we had more workers to spread that work out to level that work, it still wasn't enough workers. And then the decision was made, that's not a decision we make as a zone, that is policy with the Department of Health and Human Services making that decision, then to move that work statewide. In the interim, I just want to give a shout out to Shayna and her team. The only thing constant is change and redesign that has been, and hopefully maybe some of these in this last year, every team member across the state, not just ours, have been flexible, but maybe what I knew last week, Monday, by next week, Friday, something's gonna change. So we're still working towards trying to ensure that we know that right process, so.
Yeah, and I would say that, that first year of redesign was very much familiarizing ourselves with our new reality, our new process. And as with most things, when you enter into them on paper, they make absolute sense. And the workflow seems logical and reasonable. But when you're into it, there are absolutely things that come up that you realize, were kind of unexpected side items, basically, or unintended consequences of certain actions. And so I'd say that first year for us has been finding out what those unintended consequences were, or what things were, good in theory, but in practice, had us thinking differently. And so I would say that this upcoming year and into the following is going to be a lot of being able to fine tune it more so, rather than being encountered with what the issues are, now having more information and understanding what decisions or what processes create different outcomes. And so I think some of the newness has worn off, we've adjusted, but we're also, learning to be very purposeful and thoughtful about how the system works and how we can use it to offer our clients the most advantageous assistance that we can give them. Having that workload spread out statewide has definitely provided some decrease in the amount of issues that we have regarding timeliness. So clients are getting their benefits more timely. I'd say that there are absolutely still areas, though, that we could improve on that, whether that's changing items within the system, or changing the way that we assign the work, or how that workflow goes. But it has been nice to see that there has been an increase in our ability to get benefits to clients faster. And within that structure too, that 4-region structure that Gail was referring to, is we do have regional policy and program managers. And so they sort of act as a liaison between the zones and our state partners. So they're involved in a lot of those processes too.
They are our state employees, they're
Yeah.
not zone employees.
Right.
I think one of the, I'm sure I'm butting in here,
go
but
ahead.
Shayna mentioned program supervision and people supervision. So from my perspective, I think that's cumbersome a little bit, and I think that might be something coming out. Most recently, our state partners have been trying, or at least in our region, trying to address that, because we can have team members, it's difficult if there's performance-related issues, but their program person supervisor might be in Richland County. But internally, we people supervise and we need to know about the performance so we can provide appropriate performance management. So we're doing some things internally or within our region to try to address that.
And then number 2,
Oh, that's
the
me.
deferred compensation.
And then we also, we have the largest number of team members in economic assistance, so there's not enough program supervisors. That's why we're trying to streamline it so the program and the people are in the same person, but we don't have enough people that way,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, program supervisors. It is hard we're trying very hard to arrange it so that a worker could potentially have the same programs, same people. But as Gail alluded to, because of the size of our team, that's not as easy as it might be for those smaller zones that you can kind of marry those up easier. But I think we're trying because it takes a lot of communication and a lot of discussion and negotiation and sort of two sets of eyes, and a lot of things can be subjective, and so it does sometimes create an issue to being able to find where a worker's strengths and weaknesses are, where something can be better, or how to harness the strengths of a worker and use them for to our advantage in terms of how we serve our clients. So those things can be quite cumbersome, but I think that we're trying to look at it and streamline it where we can, understanding that we probably won't be able to do it completely. So I think, Alyssa, you can think of anything else? Yeah.
No.
I got a quick question. So the first time someone's calling in for economic assistance, do they call into an economic assistance number, or do they call into a central site and then they just get put out to who's available, or how do they?
So yeah, thank you for that, because that's actually, so a client can come into the office and submit an application or a review. We have a staff out front that takes that, but it doesn't necessarily go to one of our workers. They'll maybe scan that document and it'll go within the workflow of our eligibility system and be assigned to workers. If they have questions about their case, we have a centralized call center made up of individuals throughout the state. And so a client would call into that if they ever had any questions or needed to report anything. That's all done via that customer service or customer support center. I forget how many people they have on it right now. I think there's about 17 to 20 dedicated workers that are eligibility workers that can answer those questions. And then there's a team of what we call tier 1 individuals who are equipped with training to sort of answer some of those easier questions, like did you get my documents, or what's the status of my case? And then additionally, we have an online portal where clients can upload and submit applications, reviews, documents, and even ask questions within that. So that's kind of how all the work comes to us and questions are answered, but that does not take away their ability to come in office and turn stuff in. And they won't necessarily get to speak with a worker, right at that moment, because we wouldn't already know who's assigned to it, or they might not even be in-house, but at least we have the ability to meet them where we're at, or where they're at, sorry.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, if somebody is unable to complete an application on their own for whatever reason, can't fill it out, can't read it right, and they come into your office, is there somebody who can help them complete that application?
Absolutely. So our support staff individuals, the 3 currently that meet with clients, if there is a need to help with completing an application or review, we have a dedicated office that they pull that client into, and they will sit down with them and complete it.
Okay. Second question was, if somebody applies for benefits, say in November, and then because of the backload, are not able to get it until February, do they get paid for those benefits back to November?
Yes.
Okay, if there's program requirements for participation, how does that work? Let's just say it's TANF, and they applied in November, and it took them till now to get their benefit. What happens to their program participation, which they were never referred to because it took that long?
So that's a really good question for Jill to jump in on.
Jill does TANF.
Thanks for circling her in.
Well, as you're aware, we send a referral when we do the interview. Well, actually, now we can't send the referral to the jobs program until we have everything else we need. So let's say somebody applies for TANF and we're behind. And that happened in October when we had all the logic gaps and we So now we have dependent, and we need some income information. If we don't get that for another couple of weeks, then we send the referral to the jobs program after we know they're totally eligible. So we could be out, the jobs program could be out then a couple months of participation and have to eat those months. Correct. I know that's where you're going with that.
Yeah.
But they do get their monetary benefits back to November then. Yes.
Maybe a
Jill-
follow-up question as well. What kind of outreach is being done? What kind of outreach is done in the community, or is it solely dependent on the person either calling or coming, making the connection here? Are we going out in the community?
We are on some occasions we do, there's been a couple, like community things. I think the one I can think of most recently was in West Fargo. And we send not only a couple of members of our family services, but then economic assistance too. And we send applications and, cards that point them in the direction of the self-service portal and the customer support center. So we do have that. I'm actually going to be speaking at something in April that informs about Medicaid and how to get connected to that, how to apply for that, and what the process is. So there is some of that. I think, though, that the clients, for the most part, are coming to us more than we're able to get to them.
Can I add to that
Yeah.
too? Like the state does contract with some different entities too, like for LIHEAP to do outreach.
Yes.
Community Options does
Yeah.
LIHEAP outreach, and the state contracts with them to do so. I think they might do a couple other outreach services like the food pantry and things like that that are done by the state, not necessarily.
Correct,
us.
yeah.
I would just, I just speak to a little bit. I work at YWCA, and so the vast majority of folks that we serve are eligible for one or many of the programs falling within economic assistance. And with the redesign process, one of the things we've seen, I'm glad to hear overarchingly it's helping there be less of a backlog and things be more timely, because one of the things we lost along the way was the ability to have that relationship with the case manager. So how it used to be is everybody who comes to YWCA is assigned to an advocate. They're like their case manager. So that's the person that walks alongside them as they work to rebuild their lives and gain independence. So previously it could be that we had a release of information signed between our case manager and the county's case manager, where they could work back and forth to help support that person to get the documents done and in place, and whatever support was needed to help that person gain eligibility and stay there. So we've missed that piece that we that's a bummer for the participant and on our end. Also, the maintaining eligibility is where we're really struggling right now. For each of the different programs, and I don't know the requirements, but to maintain eligibility for TANF or SNAP, you need to do something on a monthly or quarterly basis. The participant does, and I think that they're geared towards needing to go do that in the portal. And so what we find is many of the people we serve really struggle with the portal aspect, because, and we can all empathize with this a little bit, when you go there and you're like, oh, what's my login? Oh, what's my password? And it's exacerbated with the people that we serve, because many, most that we serve don't have a Verizon cell phone plan or a Sprint plan like we do. They have a card where they purchase minutes, and their phone number changes regularly. Email addresses change as they have, cable and internet service, and when they don't. So those things change as well. So then when you go to need to reset your password, it's really a barrier to get that done. And what I understand is that there's a vendor that does that it's not staff here, but it's a vendor that does that. And so typically they need to get on the phone with someone to get that resolved. And that can be really time consuming, and oftentimes people will just give up in that process. And so then they lose their eligibility. And what we see on our end is we used to kind of be there at the end of the month. So the end of the month rolls around, people are out of food support, out of whatever support it is that they were getting. We would try to help make ends meet through donations we had from the community, or referrals to food banks that we know that could help someone right now. But because of those barriers, now they're coming to us at the beginning of the month saying we really need help, and that's not what we're able to do. So I think that's where we're seeing the biggest impact right now, is that maintaining eligibility and not having a case manager to work with directly.
I would have to echo that 100 times over from job services perspective. And then just looking at the presentation that you shared, when I look at the TANF households, compared to when I started working in this business, it is a tiny fraction of what it once was. So, and I don't know that one could say that economically, our state and our residents are doing so much better, that there's such a smaller need for economic assistance. I would argue that's probably not the case. There's a different reason for that.
Can I speak to the TANF part of it for a second, is that the state is doing something, about that. It's called modernization, TANF modernization, I know you're aware of it, Carrie, but, one of the things that they're looking at changing in the next year will be the monthly reports, that those will be something that they're looking at going away. So that's gonna involve some major system changes, but that is the plan, is those kind of things, to modernize that program. We've already increased the benefit amounts, doubled those, this last year. In August, those doubled, so things keep changing to modernize that program a little bit, and hoping those numbers, I agree with Carrie, the numbers are dismal compared to what they were when, I started in TANF, and so the state sees that too, and they are working on some modernization efforts that'll hopefully.
So the monthly reporting for TANF is for sure going to be ending, or that's in process?
It's in process.
Okay, it's being looked at.
Well, yeah, it's pretty certain that that is going to happen. I can't speak for it, but
Sure.
those kind of things, and LIHEAP is gonna see some modernization as well. So that's the term they're using for this, is like modernization, changing and updating, and, hopefully stopping the churning of the TANF program especially.
And that churning is kind of a big issue, and that's related to some of the struggles you're seeing within that maintaining of cases. Is that there is a lot of like case closure for a variety of reasons, and then having to reapply or, redo a review or doing, so we have a lot of that churning, and I think the modernization is trying to, find ways to mitigate some of that. One of them as well is childcare assistance. They used to have an annual review. I think the thought is to turn that into an 18-month review instead.
Effective already April.
There we go.
18
So,
18 months, yeah.
things like that. And the things that you're saying in terms of, access and, ability to work in partnership, those are valid concerns, and I very much validate what you're saying. I think that is something I can only speak for us as a zone or me. That is also a concern I share and look very much forward to finding ways to sort of minimize the struggle that's presented, while still operating within the system that, is greater than just us. We can still do like a release of information. It's just one that would be for, DHS as a whole. Like it would just be economic assistance versus a specific worker. And so a call, you could have a case manager that calls in to the call center. If we have a release of information for that individual, the call center individual can provide this, the same information that a worker might be able to.
Well, that's good information,
Yeah.
because I don't think we've done that, and I think that would help a lot of people.
Yeah, yep.
So that's good. Is the state aware of the portal struggles and how that's a barrier?
So we've made mention of them.
A few times.
Yeah, we've made mention of them. We've offered some suggestions or some specific barriers. I mean, one of them has been where, clients can submit multiple applications for the same program, or submit an application when really they should be prompted to do a review, or, so some of that stuff that I think that they could enhance the system to put a stopgap there. Say, oh, I see you're trying to submit an application for this program. It looks like you had a review due. Or I see you're trying to submit an application for this program, but you actually submitted one 3 weeks ago.
Does somebody help them when they submit an incomplete application? I have a client right now that can't fill out anything. And so the concern is, if this person submits an application and it's not complete, does it just get denied? Or does
No.
someone help her?
No. So the worker then would be responsible for, like, let's say it's a SNAP one. First of all, a SNAP application, the only requirement to submit one is name, address, signature. So the entire thing
So
could,
someone would contact that person?
correct,
back?
yep, and they would work with that client to get the information. And the worker will even go so far as to try what they can in terms of collateral contacts to help them get whatever information they need as well. So that worker will work in conjunction with the client. So no, an incomplete application for the most part,
Gets followed up.
correct, yep.
And then one more thing I just want to say, and then I'll stop talking.
No, go ahead.
No.
In my years of working with everybody, and then also my short time of working with people across the state, by far, your team has this done better than any other person I've come in contact with. in,
very-
the state. So
I'm-
good job.
I'm concerned, but also flattered. So thank you for the compliment, but thank you for the insight, because that's something that we can communicate training
That
opportunities.
I've talked to in Burley County and that sort of thing, but for the most part, those eligibility workers in other counties and who never experience the volume that you guys do here just are not as good at it.
Well, and I think not only the volume, but the nuances of the cases we get, the diversity of the cases and circumstances we see are just not present
Right.
much outside of those larger areas, specifically Cass. And so a lot of it has been very much a learning curve for all those individuals throughout the state. I think for the most part, they're coming along as they can, but there are definitely areas where training opportunities are present and we should take advantage of them and try and do that. But so again, I mean, I appreciate your confidence in our team, but I think you're right. There is room for training elsewhere, but they are also doing their best to learn just by exposure alone too, so.
Since we have the experts here, I'm gonna ask one more question. This is piggybacking on the one earlier about kind of back benefits when the approval process takes longer. Is that true for childcare assistants?
Yes. So they can, when they apply for child care assistance, they can request the month prior to their application. So let's say their application was in January and they wanted December. If we don't work it till March, they can submit, once it's approved, they can submit bills from December to current.
And it can go back more than 2 months. What I was told is they could only select like 2 months on the portal or something, so.
Only a month. So like, if they're applying, it can only be selected back to a month. But if we don't process it for like 2 months from the application, then we can go back to up to that month prior.
So what should we recommend the person does to get the back payment for the delay?
Well, a lot of that would have to come to like recommendation in terms of application is to select that prior month. Well, there's a question that says, do you need childcare assistance for the month prior of application? Select that. In terms of late processing, we'll approve it all the way back, but then it's on, the responsibility then is on the provider to make sure they're submitting bills to our, to economic assistance to get paid.
And if they're having problems getting that bill pushed through because it's too far down the road, then there should be a phone number to contact the state with.
Yeah.
And they should be able to see when it's authorized.
Thank you.
I got one more question. So when someone's applying and they're into this portal and they're struggling, you know, there's different softwares out there where you can hit a button and someone can jump on there with them and they can go into and look at what they're signing, where they're at and say, hey, you know, you can't put that there, but you can put it here. And they can walk down through and help them fill it out. You know, because you got different people that are struggling. But there's a lot of softwares out there where you can hit a button and someone will jump on with you and they can see where you're at and can you do that?
I mean, that we can't personally, that's a conversation that we would have to have with our state partners to try and make that a suggestion,
But I
which
mean, it-
we can do,
It
but
would really speed up the errors.
Agreed.
Because, you know, I'm sure it's not like a half page to fill out.
it sure isn't,
you know, so.
no.
We received I received a letter from a community partner in Cass County, a nonprofit, stating some concerns they had with their workers and cases closing, and it's impacting them as a nonprofit. It was a helpful letter to receive because I had some information, so I reached out to our state partners, and there is a new, what's her position? A service delivery, a director of service delivery or something like that. So what I learned from them, I said, how can I help? I called this individual back and I said, how can I help their workers, help their clients that they serve? And she was going to offer those workers training on the self-service portal, if that's helpful. I don't think right now, Brian, there's a virtual like assistant, to help with that. But that will be surely something I'll bring up, because that would be nice if somebody could pop on.
Yeah, that's great feedback, a real-time assistance.
Mhm.
That'd be.
Or even, I mean,
They can just click in.
Yeah.
right.
Chat box.
Not only, yes, an instant message option or real time, but even, I think, more explanation within the application. Click on something that tells you, what is this for? What does it look like? Or why are we asking this question? Why, just even some informational.
Didn't that come out with our federal, I was gone last week during this time, but we had some federal partners come and looking at our information, and didn't they comment that the SSP is not the easiest to navigate, so that went directly to the state too, so it wasn't just us saying it, it was this federal group from our regional partners from out in Denver.
Yeah, and so I think there'll be a lot of insight and suggestions related to the self-service portal that'll come from the feds based on their experiences with other states. And so they are probably in a better position to inform or advise on what that would look like.
And the thing to remember, I think this is all good input for us, and like from a service, we want our citizens of Cass County to be served in a timely and efficient manner. And Shayna did mention people to the tune of probably 2,300 to 2,500 a month still walk in our doors. And we're more than happy to provide that assistance for those walking in. We will help with those applications or help guide as best we can, and want to do that. If they call, they will be calling the customer support center. The phone calls go direct to that center. So I have shared a little bit Shayna's number, but I try to not share that very broadly.
It's, and I would say that is still part of the confusion too, that we need to communicate to clients, is that I think some of the frustration, since so many years they've been working directly with Cass as a zone, there's confusion about when they call, they are under the impression that they're communicating with Cass as a zone. And so a lot of some of that agitation is directed at our team, when in actuality, they're speaking with, members of that customer support center that could be anywhere. Hold times are not within our control. We're certainly trying to minimize those as well. But they're selecting an option that transfers them to this customer support center. And I mean, if I didn't otherwise know, I would probably think that I'm speaking with a representative of Cass Human Service Zone, and would find some frustration. And so we've also had to, try and educate about the fact that, yes, we're a piece of the puzzle, but, a lot of that stuff is not us directly that you're talking to. So it's been still a lot of education. Anything else I can answer, or Jill can answer?
I'm going to share, I got a phone call last week, I think. So oftentimes we get calls, and there may be more concerns or frustrations with the system. And I just want to share, Shayna had a team member, the team member on that team. This individual, this person receiving services, and he lived in Cass County, called, and for somebody to start a call to say, I'm not complaining here, because that's usually the calls I get. I thought that was very nice. But he shared how helpful, this was a medical travel situation that had been long-term for somebody that's terminally ill, and how helpful the team member had been providing services, and just really glowing. It was heartwarming to receive that call. So what I shared with the team, I did not share the individual's name or anything like that, but shared for all those 10 calls that we get, of concerns, which we should also hear those. There's probably 100 out there of individuals that you've helped, and to remember that in this process. And it was heartful to hear that voicemail from that man and how they had help. So, all the people, and I think some of our data in our dashboard shows the number of citizens in Cass County receiving some type of economic assistance. Those individuals are receiving the services that are deserved and are needed. So I think the team's doing a great job. Are there pitfalls in the process in redesign? Yeah, and I think last week Shayna mentioned, or Jill mentioned, we had, it was a state policy, it was more of a review of the state of North Dakota. Cass hosted that review. It was a SNAP review, so it was federal FMS, nutrition support for people from the feds looking at timeliness. And then it was actually 2 reviews, but it was our team members that they were talking to, so it does kind of feel like a little bit.
Well, I wanted
kind of
to
feels
add
like
to
our
that.
review.
Sort of a point of pride is that when you talk about, the call that we received, one thing that I'll say in terms of our team is the thing that I personally have always really, really enjoyed about working within our team is how collaborative we are and how often we have individuals that will step up and go outside of their respective role on the day-to-day and invest further. I think that was absolutely demonstrated when this FNS team came, because we had individuals that had to sit and have federal workers sitting in their office observing their daily work, or had to engage in interviews with them, and just the way that they step up to that, the way that they collaborate, regionally, but even more so the way that they help each other out. I mean, you will see any number of worker going amongst offices asking questions of their peers, and then we have these phenomenal lead workers that not only manage the onboarding and training, but are so supportive of our workers. And then our supervisors are fabulous. And so I'm just so proud of our local team, because when you kind of have to take on so much change and you don't have maybe that sense of power that you used to have about actualizing change, it's really hard when some of your hands are tied. But they have just really all navigated it as best they can and still collaborate with each other and with others, and it just makes me very happy. So
Yeah.
I was proud of them for last week too.
Yeah, they were busy last week, and like we hosted it, but it does feel
Yeah,
like,
it felt very much our responsibility.
yeah, our responsibility. We were representing the state of North Dakota, so I guess that's a compliment for that. Any other questions or anything else, Shayna?
No.
Okay, so let us know, moving forward, other program spotlights or specific areas. I think this is just a time to educate and get some information. It gives us also information we can bring back or how we can enhance. I think some, like Jen brought up, opportunities to get out in the community. Probably in the last year and a half, it hasn't been as much, but yes, there's opportunities. We still can encourage applications and look forward to those. So if anybody has ideas, let us know. Next item on our agenda, in your binder, and Blair did send it out, as promised, we have a handbook for you as a board member. So I hope that gives us a guide. It's, there's a lot of information in there, but we tried to be as inclusive as we thought it would be helpful for you. And I want to give shout out to Samantha, because she compiled a lot of this information. So we worked on it together, but I really leaned a lot on Samantha to get that put together. But it gives us, there's some items that probably have to be updated, maybe yearly or something like that, but it gives you a little book, to look at some of those things, as well as some of the appendices. So hope you hopefully you'll take a look at that, let us know what are we missing, what should be included, what we should cut, things like that. But we, hopefully that after 2 years, we got a handbook. So it gives everybody a little bit more of a guidance as your role as an advisory board member.
I just say, good job getting that put together. Again, as the zones were created, it's not like, this is provided for you at a state level, and again, Cass County's leading the way, so good work putting it together.
Thank
for
you.
us.
I know I mentioned at a statewide meeting that we kind of had a draft of and people wanted it, and part of me says, oh, I'm not sure if I want to share it. But, that's not being a good partner either, but I was like, oh, but, yeah. Thank you. Other than that, the operational report was included in the packet. Really just some highlights there about, we're working towards, with our state partner, with our county partners, with IT, with this document migration, with our state partners, and really with adoption redesign now that started March 1st. When did February? February 1st. That's the first area we're trying this document migration process. So really thankful for Bob with our county IT. He's been an integral part with this as we kind of navigate through two systems. It's a little complicated, more in a more robust zone than some smaller zones. So we go from there. We don't have to leave. And I also highlighted in there, and we can talk about this more at another time, but we do we have agreements with Richland, Ransom, Sargent zone, so the south, and Agassiz Valley to the north. We have an agreement to their direct care providers, so homemakers. So think about keeping people in their homes, and not in a care facility or someplace like that, to do some zone-funded homemaker services for Cass County. So their workers are actually the qualified service providers, or we also contract, but we have agreements with each of those zones, so their workers can come into Cass County, and right now we're serving about 53 Cass County residents in the county with homemaker services to help them remain in their home and, be where they should be as they age. So that we've kind of expanded. We also have agreements with 4 other providers in our community to contract with them. So I think everything else in there is pretty self-explanatory. Each of the departments kind of has a highlight. There was a lot of information in the packet, so I hope you take, some of it's just for information purposes. There's some highlights related to family services data, and our top referring, I'll say, community partners for like assessments and things like that. Where are we getting the reports from? So that has been looked at, and kind of average caseload sizes. And then our, the zone dashboard was the last few pages of the packet. So that includes the same data for family services, and we just added in economic assistance. We should put page numbers on these maybe, future, then I can read. We added some, and that is Cass County data only. Cass County resident data only for the economic assistance pages of that report. And I just want to highlight a little bit on the kind of the staffing and turnover portion. So that's the last 2 pages. I think last 2. Yep, last 2 pages. Just a reminder, since we send this out about a week before, it's going through about mid-February or the end of January, so we're a little behind. But to date, we had, through the end of January, we had hired 5. We've only had 1 separation. And the last page shows that our current vacancy count, or FTEs, is down, it's 14 as of this data point, which we haven't been down below 20 something, the lower 20s for, I think, probably most of my time here, the last 2 years. So that's significant. 7 we're recruiting. We hired, we just onboarded 2 new team members in family services today. And proud to say that we have 15 FTEs for child protection assessment workers, and as of today, we have 1 opening. So we have 14 assessment workers hired at this point in time. Are they all 100% taking cases? No, we have to onboard those workers now, but we've made a significant recruiting and filling, and I'd say it's feeling more stable as far as personnel and vacancies. We have a couple offers of new eligibility workers starting soon, about 3. So yeah, less vacancies than we've had for quite some time, and that's a great feeling to do so. And not as many resignations, so that's even better. So, anything else? Other?
Question with the dashboard of economic assistance. So it says that monthly application activities, received 126, programs approved 22, and programs denied 20. So what's with the rest of that 126?
So there will probably ones that are pending.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we might have received the application, let's say in this month, and at the time of the report, it wouldn't be included if it's, you know, sort of in process.
So in a month's time, 22 programs were approved of the 126.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Knowing that those all don't come into Cass County, they go across the state.
Yeah, these are just numbers
Yes,
for our
absolutely.
county.
Yep. And so, and it's not, it's programs approved and programs denied. So that of those applications,
42 were completed.
correct. Yep.
Also on that number, so applications received 2567. So that's by the team in Cass County, and those individuals live,
No, so
No.
those are all Cass County residents, not
Those are
necessarily,
residents.
of where they're helped across the
correct. Yep.
Yeah, this is the data of residents in Cass County that have applied, but not the work that our team members have completed.
Yeah, data by our team working it would be incredibly skewed as to the, you know, because our focus would be on Cass residents, and so,
Yeah, that's impossible to acquire.
Yeah.
But even this number, you know, like Julie said, that, you know, a little over 2,500 and just really over 1,000 were actually approved and 187 denied, speaks to the fact of accessibility, of people seeking help, and then are they getting help?
It's a good point. Good point. Oh, Robert?
Gail, I'm not really sure there's a question wrapped up in here, but just I think this discussion today kind of wraps up a lot of themes that we've heard about the zone and redesign going back a couple of years, probably even prior to your time. And I guess what I'm thinking of, and I'd be very happy to hear feedback on it, is the challenges or the negative comments were that, you might remove that face-to-face eligibility worker that somebody would go have the access to. You might have somebody in another part of the state processing a claim, but the other side of that coin, which was sort of the backbone of redesign all along, was make more efficient use of resources statewide. And so I think my only point there would be, I think you're seeing all of it come to fruition at the same time, good and bad. And to be in the middle of all of that and to see your vacancy rate where it is at this point, that I think that's a credit to you and everybody in the zone and what you're doing. So that, again, not a thought other than there's a lot here that just seems representative of multiple years of work all in play.
Well, appreciate that, and, you know, I think it's across the zone, because, and Carissa's shared last, in February, but, you know, they went through, Family Services went through redesign too, so there's been a lot of redesign. Now there's adoption redesign, and then there'll be case management redesign. So the only thing that's constant is the change. And, you know, I think it's just, you know, as a team, as a zone, where we work together, and we have good team members, and I think we've, you know, I think that recruitment, knock on wood, has been going well, and people are liking the work that they do and being employed by the zone, so, yeah. Appreciate that. Any other things for otherwise, I just want to note, our next meeting is April 9th, which is a Tuesday. Right? No? I thought it was Tuesday.
Monday after, because it was a 3-day
I was
weekend.
gonna ask about that. Why?
Yeah, it's on, this says Tuesday. Okay, well, then it might be the Monday. What's the Monday? The 8th then?
The 8th would be Monday, but it would be not in line with the commission meeting.
Okay, so the commission meeting is the 9th?
It's on the 1st.
It is on our calendars for the 8th.
Okay, so then that was wrong on this. Yeah, so
It was shifted because of the long holiday weekend.
we have a Friday on the 8th. So we will be meeting on Monday, the 8th, the week after the commission meeting.
Okay.
I'm glad I brought that up. If there's any other business for the board, the advisory board? If not, motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone.